Hey there. Hey, my name is Jody, and I am your instructor for today. Thanks so much for being here. It's so nice to have all you guys in class and know that we are live and we're doing it. We're doing it. Um, we are studying. What are we doing? We are studying for the MBLEx. We are studying for the Massage and Bodywork Licensing Exam. And these classes run for just under 60 minutes. And they operate in three parts. The three parts are a little bit of insight in part one into actually taking the test and how we can prepare to take the test. And so number two, second part of class is all our content. And today we get to go over the exciting topic of scope of practice versus standard of practice. I know these business segments, how do they contribute to, we'll also answer, how do they contribute to our overall practice as a massage therapist. So yeah, let's do that. So in part two, we'll cover the scope of practice versus standard of practice and talk a little bit why we need to learn this stuff. And then in the third part, we're going to kind of mix in parts 2 and 3 today, and that is to dissect some questions. Yeah, I know how you love dissecting questions. So, all right. So let's start with in the beginning. Let's make the main thing the main thing. And today's helpful hint is one I've shared in the past with classes, and you may have found yourself settling into this already. And that is one of the best practices in preparing for the MBLEx is to actually have a specific study time. So a day of the week and an hour of the week that you just consistently have an hour or two that you practice, that you study. Maybe you give a massage even, but that part of the week is always dedicated to your journey as a massage therapist. Yeah. And it becomes, and my, students and graduates and practicing therapists even have told me, Jody, you don't know me. I'm kind of a free spirit. I like to make my own schedule I like to let things emerge, and I like to let things kind of evolve and happen. Well, that's all well and good, except that, that it ends up sabotaging. Yeah, thank you, Charlie. Yeah. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, exactly. So that there's a time in your mind without it specifically, a time and a day in your schedule, then it sabotages your progress. And here's why. Because massage therapists have told me, I don't set a schedule, I can work anytime. And, graduates have told me, Jody, I can study anytime. I've got a lot of free time. I can study anytime. Well, guess what happens when you can study anytime? You don't study at all because you can study anytime and there's never a set time. So having it in your schedule, really, it lets you escape and truly be free. Some of us, are wired to feel a little guilty if we don't study or we don't, do our workout or we don't. But you don't have to feel guilty when you have free time if you know it's okay. I can have free time on Friday because I studied Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Or I have free time on the weekend because I study Friday afternoons. Having a schedule sets you free. And I'll say I'm reading this book right now. It's called Atomic Habits. Oops, it's not going to show. It'll show on my black shirt. There we go. Atomic Habits. Yeah. And I'm going to give you a little hint that I just learned. So if you say that my schedule changes so much that it's really hard for me to set a specific time and day to schedule, what is in your schedule already? What's already in your schedule that you do once or twice a week that okay, I do this, I want to study once or twice a week, and I do this once or twice a week. And you can do what's called habit stacking. And so you attach your study time to something you already do. So what do you already do? I mean, what do we do every day? We, get up, we make the bed, we brush our teeth, we take a shower, we take the dog for a walk, whatever it is you do every day, or 2 or 3 times a week, however often you want to study. Attach your study to that habit that's already there. Say, for example, you know that you start cooking dinner at 4 o'clock. Maybe that's not a great example. You brush your teeth before you go to bed, right? Say you're going to brush your teeth. Well, maybe before you brush your teeth or after you brush your teeth, you spend 15 minutes studying. So you attach that study to another habit you already have in place, and it becomes that much easier to do it. So in the best practices for preparing for the MBLEx is to have a specific day, at least one day a week, where you dedicate even just 15 minutes to organizing your studying. Because how many of you have to organize before you study? I do. I definitely do. I mean, I've got packed stacks of paper, and before I start the project, I actually have to organize, and then I can start the project. So even if it's 15 minutes a week where you're organizing your materials, that is enough. It really is, to get you in the habit that helps you to improve, even by just 1%. Again, the book Atomic Habits says, if you can even improve by 1% each week, you're going to get there. You're actually going to get there, even with baby steps. And I love baby steps. I have some graduates who go through this process for a year. We study together like this for all 4 classes during the year. All through the year, they study until they feel ready. It's those baby steps. And just by listening to this, just by being here today, you have taken a baby step. Yeah, you are becoming more prepared. Yeah, even by just a little bit. That's all that counts. So the next part of what we're going to do today is take our mindset that we're going to study once a week at a specific day and time, and we're going to stack that onto an existing habit. But what are we going to study? Well, maybe you're going to want to review this lesson again. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Look at me. Technology is working. And this always is tricky. There we go. Slideshow from the beginning. All right, here we go. Welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah, glad that you're here today. Today we're going to be actually talking. Oh, who am I? I'm Jody Scholes, and I like to mention that I just didn't pull this out of the air. I've actually been teaching this stuff for a while. You may be able to tell. But I'm a licensed therapist since 1994. I've worked with elite and pro athletes and actually continue that work at times. And I'm former adjunct faculty at Northern Virginia Community College in their massage therapy program. I've been teaching for more than 5 years now, but I went back and took the MBLEx and passed it in 2016. So that's a little bit about who I am. And so these are some common challenges we face when taking the MBLEx. And I just like to bring them up because we all face the same things. Mostly it's mindset. Sometimes students, graduates will tell me, oh, I don't know enough. I graduated so long ago. You're working on your knowledge right now. Fear and test-taking anxiety, ineffective study sessions, all of these different things. These are common challenges that students have shared, graduates have shared with me over the years. But guess what's the same about all of these challenges? You can control them all. You are in control of all of them. And you know what? It starts with that helpful hint, that strategy, that MBLEx test-taking strategy of having a consistent day and time, even if it's Tuesdays at noon, that you are studying. So you can control all of these challenges. You just have to figure out how, right? All right, we're doing stuff a little bit different today. We're jumping in and we're dissecting a question, then we're going to cover content, and we're going to dissect another question. So we're having kind of a sandwich day today on our content. This is a topic that we talked about last week, and you most likely talked about in school. So let's see if we can get through it, or how we get through it. So, ready? All right. This is the theme of our class today. Let me see if I can. And that is our best business practices, ethics, boundaries, learning styles, hygiene. These are all under the umbrella of best practices and best business practices. So let's take a look at the answer or the question. Blank are codified rules of conduct set forth by a society, generally based upon shared ethical or moral principles. All right. So we're going to go through how to dissect a question, right? If you've got your answer, feel free to stick it in the chat. Okay. And we'll work through this. But let's see what is the question actually answering or asking. And this is an important part of dissecting a question. What is it actually asking you? And what is the best answer? All right, so let's take a peek. Codified rules. That should pretty much put the fear of God in you. What are codified rules? Well, rules of conduct set forth by a society, generally based upon shared. Okay, let's dig a little deeper. Can we reword this? So, rules of conduct, shared ethical or moral principles, right? Oh, I see some answers coming up. Ooh, I'm loving it, loving it. So as we go through, we pick out the big things. So it's highlighted, what's in bold, rules of conduct, shared ethical or moral principles. Can we eliminate 2 wrong answers? Say you're completely lost, okay? Let's just eliminate 2 wrong answers. So codified rules, not sure what codified means, but rules of conduct. And, you know, if you have English as a second language, again, God bless you, because some of the times I'm a native English speaker and I don't know what they're asking. So let's eliminate 2 wrong answers. We know we've got rules, ethical, moral principles. So let's see. Now, our learning styles, codified rules. That is not the case. Let's move you guys up here so we can see. Okay. All right. So our learning styles, do they have anything to do with rules? Yeah, they do not. So we can get rid of learning styles. So rules of conduct, moral principles, our assessments, codified rules, do they have anything to do with each other? Not really, right? Okay, so we're working through this. Now you've got a 50-50 chance. And this is what you can practice with the MBLEx. If you're completely lost, you have no idea where they're coming from, go through and just pick out the big words in the sentence, the big words in the questions, and work through. So now we got a 50-50 chance and we can put in the answer. Ethics are codified rules of conduct. Laws are codified rules of conduct. All right, there's been a lot of answers put in the chat. And guess what? You're right. Laws. Laws are our codified rules of conduct. They're rules. They're codified. They've been put into a code. Not into a code like Morse code, but they're formal. They're formalized. They're written down. and they're agreed upon. So there's our best answer. All right, quick example of how to dissect a question. Here's when you take the practice exams in the online learning center, every now and then when you have a correct or incorrect answer, you'll get a big bubble that pops up like this, like, okay, why is this the right answer? And this helps you to say, okay, this is the actual definition of laws. This is the actual definition of ethics. So if that was confusing for you at all, this helps to clarify. All righty. Time to roll into the main topic of today, which is guidelines to a professional practice, which is scope of practice versus standards of practice. They do not mean the same thing. And again, semantics in English, but scope of practice versus standards of practice. You are likely to see questions on this. So let's clarify. Scope of practice means scope. Like if you looked through a telescope, right? If you were looking down a telescope or had a microscope, it's the activities that are allowed. It's what you can practice in. It's what we focus on, what activities are allowed for us to practice. When, where, how, specific methods are applied. So is it within the scope of your practice? That is what they're asking you. So the boundaries that control what we as massage therapists are allowed to do is called the scope of the practice. So generally, it's allowed to perform manipulation on soft tissue and even energy work. That's usually within the scope of practice in your jurisdiction, in your city, county, state. We'll get to that in just a minute. Something we cannot do is we cannot diagnose and we cannot prescribe. So important to understand the scope of that practice. We can assess a situation that's within the scope of our practice, but that is not diagnosing. And please understand the difference, because when we assess, we say, in my opinion. It's my assessment. That is within our scope of practice. But we are not allowed to say, that's type 2 diabetes. That's Crohn's disease. That's a bulging disc. I feel a bulging disc. No, 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 no. No, and no again. No, because we're not allowed to diagnose. But no also because we don't give our clients labels. Oh, I have Crohn's disease. Oh, my massage therapist says I'm a mess. Oh, my massage therapist says I have a bulging disc. Well, that massage therapist, whoever said that, is out of the scope of practice and is practicing beyond what they're legally allowed to do. Also, we are not allowed to manipulate joints or realign the skeleton. We've had some daring massage therapists that say, oh, I can give you an adjustment. No, you can't. If the bones move while you're massaging, that's completely different. But if you used force to intentionally manipulate a joint or realign a skeleton, it's out of the scope of practice. Now, case in point, I do traction on the fingers, I do traction on the toes, I do traction on the ankle. If it moves, it moves. But I'm not twisting a spine. You've probably had this situation where you're working on a client on their back and they take a nice deep breath and they hear pop, pop, pop. Yeah, that's natural. That is the body healing itself. That is you facilitating a space where the body realigned. And that's really the reason for our muscle work, right? To loosen those muscles around the spine, to loosen those muscles around the ribs, to loosen those ligaments and tendons that are imbalanced. to allow for a realignment of the spine in a natural way. But it is out of the scope of practice if we use force to do that. So also regulations vary by state, and we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but I want to reiterate that every state is different. Even right now in Minnesota, where they technically don't have a license that is required to practice in the state, most of the counties have a license necessary to practice, not just a business license. And so remember the difference. This is scope of practice, right? Scope of practice. So part of our scope of practice is we have to know what our jurisdiction requires. So you've got a state or province, a regulatory agency there. You've got the AMTA. Actually, this is also where you can go to figure out what your state requires. You can go to your local AMTA chapter. They'll tell you what's required. You may not like it, but it's good to know. You need to be able to practice legally within the scope of your practice. Your state department of revenue may have information about your business license, and it's different. Remember, you're going to pass the MBLEx, and you're going to get your state license to practice massage therapy. That's a license to practice a profession. That is your license to practice your profession. You may also need a business license. You may also need liability insurance. In almost every case, you need liability insurance. So just understanding what you need in your jurisdiction, and these are some resources for you. City Hall, the county clerk. I mean, when I first started practicing, I needed a town license, a county license, and a state license to do business on top of my license as a profession, as a professional. All right, leaving behind scope of practice, we're going to look at standards of practice. Yes, so Alex is mentioning here that as a PT, used chiropractic as a complementary massage with stretching. Yes, so if we sense that a client needs an adjustment, then it is terrific to have some chiropractors that you know and trust. In fact, I recently made an appointment just for next week because I've been being asked. And so I asked another colleague in my area, who else should I check out? So these are not only resources for your clients, but also resources for you to get new clients. Whether you decide to practice at a franchise or you decide to work at an independent clinic, meaning you're working for someone, but they're not part of a franchise. So for example, my practice was called the Northern Virginia Massage Center. We had 5 treatment rooms and about 15 employees, but we weren't a franchise. We weren't a Hand and Stone or a Massage Lux. So really being very intentional. You may get chiropractors referring their patients in to see you where you decide to practice. And that's a beautiful segue, because if you are practicing independently, the standards of practice are going to inform, are going to help you set a standard. So scope is like the telescope or the microscope to see something up close. That's our scope of practice. Standards of practice are going to give us the standard that we're living up to. In fact, well, you'll see in our first standard. I'll show you. First standard is professionalism. And professionalism has to do with not only how you drape, which is, actually what I'm showing you here is appropriate draping. And let me tell you, you wanna fire me up, start a conversation about draping. Secure draping, please. It's not on your MBLEx, but it is one of the standards of the standard number 1 from NCB-TMB. And if you haven't heard of NCB-TMB in a while, they are the National Certification Board of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork, and they're responsible for these standards. They are the ones who've set them out. So professionalism. Professionalism has to do with how you also dress, how your office looks. Is it all cluttered? If you're practicing from your home, if you're going to their home, are you using a bolster? In this case, the bolster is pictured here, and it's in a pillowcase, so that it's not cold on the person's leg. These are like signs of professionalism. Today, I wore all black because I have a massage client later. This is what I wear when I practice. It gives an air of professionalism, as does secure draping, as does your environment. We've already touched on the legal and ethical requirements. So standards of practice are also meeting all of those legal and ethical requirements. Do you have a chip on your shoulder about paying taxes? Well, sorry, but it's a legal requirement to pay taxes. And it is just, if you're in business, if this is your business, if this is how you're going to earn a living, then don't treat it like a hobby. If it's a hobby, great, good for you, great hobby. But this is the difference, the mindset. This is my business. We hope to make enough money to pay taxes. And if you're working for someone else, they take the taxes out of your check already. Easy peasy. Meeting a standard of practice is meeting those legal and ethical requirements. We have spoken about confidentiality. Confidentiality spreads a little bit further than just your client paperwork. We get a health intake on every client, and that way we know what's going on to a certain degree. Do we ever really know? Well, as we work with them, we do. But confidentiality goes beyond the paperwork, beyond HIPAA laws. HIPAA laws actually say that for medical professionals to exchange information about a client, the client has to sign off on a client release form, on an information release form. But confidentiality also means don't talk about your clients outside of the treatment room. You talk to your clients in the treatment room, and what gets said in the treatment room stays in the treatment room. This can get a little tricky if you're working on a husband and a wife. It's like you do not know. It's like there's somebody else's wife, somebody else's husband, to keep that confidentiality. Business practices, are you keeping your books? How are you dressing? What does your office look like? So a standard of practice is you get to decide the environment that you want to facilitate for your clients. Business practices, do you confirm your appointments? Do you have policies and procedures? I've had graduates say, oh, Jody, I don't really need policies and procedures. I'm not going to be seeing, I don't need that. That's for formal businesses. It's for you too. Business practices, do you have a cancellation policy? Do you have a cancellation fee? How far are you willing to travel? These are some business practices you can decide on ahead of time, and that way they stay consistent. And it's like, oh, well, I started working on that guy's grandma, and now I have to drive 20 miles to go see that guy's grandma, but I'm not doing that anymore. So I said no to their neighbor, but yes to them. You following me here? Yeah, exactly. So standardize your business practices and understand those are also considered boundaries, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Roles and boundaries. We talked about dual relationships in a couple weeks ago, creating clear boundaries, but that's a standard of practice because number 5 feeds into number 6. which is the prevention of sexual misconduct. The easiest way to summarize number 6, don't have sex with your client. Don't sexualize the massage. Duh, right? Yeah, just don't do it. All right. Those are our 6 standards. Professionalism. So how are we presenting ourselves? The meeting our legal and ethical requirements. Confidentiality, making sure that we keep our clients' information confidential. Business practices, being intentional about our policies and procedures. Being consistent client to client. We don't charge one client more and one client less. Being consistent with what we charge per hour. That's part of business practices. Roles and boundaries. Making sure that we remember that we are the massage therapist. Even if we have other roles with that particular client, say they're your mom, say they're your neighbor. When you walk into that treatment room, when you start that health intake, you have your massage therapist hat on, that is your role, and those are the boundaries. They don't get to violate or to cross over a boundary because they have a dual relationship with you. And it's really up to you to keep that in the narrow, in between. We like to say the navigational beacons. There's a song by Jimmy Buffett that says, just keep it between the navigational beacons, right? That's like when you drive a boat. But we want to have clear boundaries, what works for us and what doesn't work for us. That's part of our standards of practice. And then the prevention of sexual misconduct speaks for itself. All right. Stretch break. Wah, wah, wah. Stretch break. All right. Throw those shoulders back a little bit. Let's just take a minute. When we dive into these concepts that we haven't maybe thought of in a while or listened to in a while, it's good to kind of step out of it and say, okay, how am I feeling in my body? Roll our shoulders back, tuck our spine underneath us, kind of engage those abs. Go ahead and engage those abs. Imagine a little string on the top of your head, pulling you up. Yeah. Extending. Good. All right. Now, new question. We are going to dissect again a question. So like I said, we've got a sandwich going today on the question. So we did one, now we've covered some content, and now we're jumping in. And this is an anatomy question. And it's specifically not a scope of practice or standard of practice question, because in the MBLEx, your questions come fast and furious in all different categories. So let's look at this together. What ribs do not attach to the sternum? Tricky. Why is this tricky? Why am I saying it's tricky? Could be a little tricky, right? Yes. All right, let's take a look. What ribs do not attach to the sternum? So let's pay attention to the question, right? So here are the answers. Ribs 6 through 12, ribs 1 and 2, 8 through 12, ribs 1 and 8 through 12, ribs 8 through 12. Let's take a look. Now, we really want to, now, this happens now and then on the MBLEx. Take a look at the question. What are the 3 main points of the question? Well, we're talking about the ribs, right? Where are the ribs? Touch your ribs. Or ask what ribs do not attach to the sternum. And then where's the sternum? Touch your sternum. Tap your sternum, right? So what ribs do not attach to the sternum? Now, how did our ribs, okay, so let's just go through the question. What ribs? So reword the question, if that helps. The ribs that do not attach to the sternum are Studies, research has shown when you reword the question, it helps your brain answer it. The ribs that do not attach to the sternum are, all right, eliminate the distractors. 2 wrong answers. Let's find them. Let's eliminate, because remember, every question in the answers will have an answer there to distract you. It will be almost right or have elements of the truth. This question is no different. There are some distractors in there. But let's get through. Let's see if we can eliminate 2 wrong answers. All right. Ribs 6 through 12. Okay. That seems possible, right? Because let's see, right? Touch your ribs, sternum, ribs, right? Where are they? They're all right here, right? We have the costosternal joint. So we've got our costosternal joint here in the front, and we've got the vertebral joint, right? Where that rib turns into a vertebrae, that's a costovertebral joint. So our ribs attach to the sternum and they wrap around and attach to the spine, some of them. All right, let's keep going. Seems possible, A. All right, B, where are ribs 1 and 2? Touch them. Where are they? Where are ribs 1 and 2? Are they at the top or the bottom? Where are ribs 1 and 2? Top or bottom? Yeah, they're at the top. Yeah, so they're ribs 1 and 2. They're up here, right? Very, very high up where our ribs 1 and rib 2. So you can actually feel them. You can feel the parts in between them, right? Yeah, so ribs 1 and 2. Yeah, so what do we know about ribs 1 and 2? Do they attach to the sternum? Yeah, they do. Ribs 1 and 2 attach to the sternum right up here. This is the sternum, right? Also called the breastbone, right? So yes, ribs 1 and 2 actually attach to the sternum. They attach right here. All right, so then can we eliminate another distractor? We can, because look, letter C, it has rib 1 in there. Yeah, no, that ain't gonna work. Nope. So we can eliminate B and C. Now we've got A and D. All right, so we've dissected the question. We found the stem of the question. We restated the question as a statement. The ribs that attach to the sternum, that do not attach to the sternum are, so ignore this big question because it should say do not attach. I didn't write it correctly. So this is do not attach to the sternum. We've eliminated our distractors. Now we make our best guess. So A or D. All right, what you got? What you got? What do you think? It does, you know what? Who cares if you get it wrong? That's why we're here. Yeah, best guess. You got a 50-50 chance. Yep. Look at you guys. Yes. All right, next answer. Correct answer, letter D. Ribs 8 through 12 do not attach. So this, don't ignore this top of the question. Our question is what doesn't attach? Sorry, I didn't catch that I wrote it wrong. Ribs 8 through 12. So when they come down, so our ribs come down the sternum, right? And then we've got those floaters in the back. Yeah, so the ribs that are floating ribs do not officially attach to the sternum, and that's ribs 8 through 12. Yay! All right, that is all that I have for you in the way of information today. Yes, yeah, Alexi, it's fine, close enough, 7, 8. They did not for you a 7. This is a wrap, and I wanted to mention we are officially over halfway through this session. So let's see, let me go to gallery view, yes, and there we go. I like this view better. I know in the recording it doesn't look as nice, but I like to be able to see who's here. And so that's what I have for you today in the way of learning. So those exercises of going through and dissecting the questions, that means you're going to take a little bit of extra time. It's actually going to be a little bit of extra time for you. Yeah, and that can be nervous. There's a certain amount of anxiety to go through the questions as quickly as possible. Please recognize that in yourself while you're doing practice exams, while you're doing quizzes. Intentionally slow yourself down. I can see on the online learning center, I can see how long you've spent in the quiz. Yes. And you know what? I watched the very first time people take the quiz on navigating the body. It's where we all start. It's where we all need to start in navigating the body, right? Really understanding the directions and being able to dissect a question to interpret lateral rotation and transverse plane and all of that. But I watched on that first quiz, and the very first quiz, most people rushed through it. They get done in like 8 to 10 minutes. They're like, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this. And then they come back and they're like, oh my God, I got a 37. How did I get a 37 on this quiz? That's impossible. I answered all the questions right. Well, guess what? There are distractors in every question. Yeah, there are distractors in every question, almost every question. If you get through a few that are easy, just know those were easy. But I have set this practice exam up. I've set the quizzes up to simulate the MBLEx. And it's really important that you find the best answer and that you practice finding the best answer. And that can only happen when you truly understand the question and read all the answers. Letter D might be the best answer, and you didn't get there because A was close, right? I see some questions coming in the chat. Let's see what those are. Oh, yes, absolutely. We're going to do, the question is there going to be any more of those mini lessons? I loved navigating the body. Absolutely. We bounce back and forth. I have a set schedule for the 8 weeks that we're together, and we are doing another, I think we're doing lower body next week. I'd have to take a peek, I don't remember, but lower body anatomy, lower body directional. So navigating the body is an awesome lesson in kind of getting us grounded again in the fundamentals of directions and movement and the kinesiology, really. And that's where a lot of graduates say, oh my gosh, I don't remember the movements. That's okay. We got you. We got you. You can figure it out once you get to the basics of the foundation. And I will say, if getting grounded in the foundational knowledge is a new term for you, I want to just take these last few minutes we're together to talk to you about being grounded. And I was reminded this weekend by 11 and 12-year-old, actually, who looked at me like they had no idea what my problem was. I had said I was feeling grounded. I said, oh, how are you feeling, Miss Jody? I said, you know what? I feel really grounded. And they're like, oh, did you get in trouble? Because for many people, being grounded refers to like when they were a kid and they got grounded. There's a negative connotation. I asked another massage therapist not that long ago, what does it mean to be grounded? What does it mean to you to be grounded? And she said, oh, I learned about that in shop class. Don't ever plug an outlet into, don't ever plug anything into an outlet that's not grounded. And that has some correlation with what I'm talking about, but I wanted to spend just a minute with you and ask you, what does it mean to you when I say that an important part of our practice in massage therapy is to be grounded? I'm speaking more of the earth. Like I'm speaking more about your connection to being here and now. Because we spend quite a bit of our time, thank you, yeah. Yes, these are all right. So we get some great comments coming in from this. Thank you. Being still is a part of being grounded. Charla says you don't feel like you're running around with your head cut off and feel like you can focus more. Yes, and there are practices to help us get still, to get grounded. And I'm not saying you need to meditate, for 30 minutes to be grounded. You can meditate, you can pause for just a minute and listen to your breathing to become present. And that's really what being grounded, the benefit of being grounded is being present, present to what's going on. And my lovely, lovely future licensed massage therapists, if you did not get this in school, you can get it now. Before stepping into the treatment room, before stepping into work, walking into your workplace, before even getting in the car, before leaving your house. I actually do this before I leave the house. I just pause and I take a breath. Yeah. I pause and I take a breath. And that allows me to become present. It allows me to pause and say, is there anything else that I need to bring with me before I leave? Some people do this before they travel, right? They'll pause and be like, okay, I've got my driver's license, I've got my boarding pass, I've got, if you need your passport, I've got my suitcase, I've got my spouse. That pause before we enter the treatment room sets our intention for the session. To pause. A number of you have said that you have a ritual, a habit, a best practice before you come to class. And you spend a few minutes just getting centered. Getting centered is absolutely the same thing as getting grounded. We feel our feet underneath us. Some will imagine roots going into the ground. Some to really just feel like they can dump whatever they need to dump before walking into the treatment room. Yeah. And for some people, and Charla shares this too. You can see it in the chat, and I'll share it with the people listening to the recording. And that is, if you have if you don't just not sure what feeling grounded feels like, when it's warm, you can step outside and if you're comfortable being barefoot, go barefoot in the grass. If you live near a beach, go barefoot in the sand. Feel that feeling of the earth underneath you. You are present, you are here, you are focused. And this brings us to how it benefits you in passing the MBLEx. When you have a practice, a ritual, a habit, a hack, some people call it a hack, that you use to bring yourself into the present. Very common technique is to listen to your breath. Just listen to the breath going in the nose and out the mouth. In the nose or out the mouth. Charla says, or when it's cold, you can be grateful for shoes. Yes. Yeah. But getting outdoors, I have a friend who hugs a tree, literally hugs a tree to get grounded. But you can also use your breath. If you're indoors, if you're in the car, if you're in the MBLEx, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And for me, if I have anything I want to release from the earlier part of the day, maybe someone who I've encountered has been really stressed. Maybe there's been someone driving like a cuckoo bird in traffic. I send them some compassion. I also need to release that feeling. You might get a feeling of anxiety. Yes. You might get a feeling of anxiety during your test taking. Know that you can breathe in through your mouth, out in through your nose, excuse me, out through your mouth, and you can even make a sound. You might want to make the sound of blowing out a candle. Some yogis and some people who have another practice use the sound ha and in through the nose. If you've taken martial arts, they may have had you do when you punch. That is to like be in your strength, intentionally getting rid of those feelings that you may have had that no longer serve you, or in a situation that you walked into. And now you're ready to be present. In through the nose, out through the mouth. You can use that. So this is my time with you for today. I want to honor the time that we're recording. I'll wrap up the recording and I have time to stay for additional questions, feedback. I wanted to mention too that Charlie says, taking a huge sigh is also lovely. If you're in through the nose, and just sigh it out. Sigh it out. In fact, you'll notice I've got a couple of different things behind me today. One is the Body Blueprint, and the Body Blueprint is the book that I'm writing, and it talks about how your biography becomes your biology. How the body keeps score. A book, a really popular book right now, written 10 years ago, but the body keeps score. And your biography becomes your biology. And with a simple sigh, with a simple, we can get it out of our body. It might come back. That's all right. We're human. But we can get it out of the body. Wim Hof breath. Oh, it helps relax. Oh, excellent. Jason says that the Wim Hof breaths help him. And I believe Wim Hof is the fellow who does the icy swimming, right? I believe so. So imagine swimming in under 60-degree water. Very chilly. There's some breath work that helps to keep you warm on the inside. Yeah. So all of these techniques, these tools that you have to choose from, that you can employ, you can use while you're taking your MBLEx. Don't you worry about your neighbor. If you're out there with a little fire breath, blowing out some candles, don't you worry. You just do what you do to stay present. And so I will leave you with that for today. My name again is Jody Scholes. I'm your instructor. Thank you so much if you are a part of the patron community that has decided to donate even just $1 a month to support these classes continuing. I really appreciate you guys a lot. And it fills my heart with joy. I appreciate it. We will be back next week, and there's more in the series. Just follow me on Facebook, find me on YouTube, or I'm also on Instagram, and there'll be more announcements. Facebook is where I make the announcements about our MBLEx classes, and so you can follow me there at Business of Bodywork. I know you would think it would be Jody Scholes, right? I do have a personal page, but Business of Bodywork is where you'll find me on Facebook. That again is Business of Bodywork. So signing off for today. If you're live in class, feel free to stay and we can chat a little bit longer, but I'll see you soon, either here in the virtual world or in through these recordings. Ciao for now.